By my count, there are exactly 52 secondary weapons in Team Fortress 2. This count does not include reskins like the Capper and the Geiger counter, and I also included the Medic's syringe gun collection instead of his medigun collection because those weapons behave more like secondaries than the medigun does. Now, because of the wide array of options, some are obviously going to be better than others. Some secondary weapons are good, some are situational, and some are just flat out bad. Starting with Scout and ending with Spy, today I'm going to determine what the strongest secondary weapon is for each class, as well as the runner-ups for weapons that are still good but not quite the best. I would say that every single secondary weapon the Scout has is a good choice, but because we can only pick one, I would say that the Mad Milk is the Scout's strongest secondary weapon. The Mad Milk is a throwable jar of milk that splashes groups of enemies and coats them with milk. Damaging enemies covered in milk will cause 60% of the damage you deal to them to be returned as your own health, drastically improving your survivability in the middle of a fight. The Mad Milk is an amazing support tool that allows the Scout to keep both himself and his team alive for longer during fights, and proper usage of it makes your team incredibly hard to kill. This comes at the cost of being able to have a secondary source of damage, because you have to give up your pistol if you want to use it, but this doesn't really matter at all because of how good Scout's primary weapons are. I would say that the runner-up picks for Scout's best secondary are the stock pistol and the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol. They both provide you with a consistent source of damage that is really good for pestering enemies at a distance. And both are also really good for dealing with exposed sentry guns, which are Scout's main counter. But neither of them can really compete with how useful the Mad Milk is at the end of the day. Soldier has some pretty solid secondary weapons too, but I think that the Battalion's backup is definitely the strongest choice. The banner effect is without a doubt one of the strongest buffs in the entire game. When the effect is active, it gives immunity to critical hits, blocks 50% of sentry gun damage, and blocks 35% of damage from all other sources, making you and your surrounding teammates incredibly hard to kill. It's actually pretty similar to the Mad Milk in that sense, and you may notice that items that make you and your teammates stronger and your enemies weaker are always extremely powerful. And the 20 extra health that it provides you with is just the cherry on top. That health bonus puts you above lethal damage thresholds, most notably against the grenade launchers. The runner-ups this time around are the gunboats and the stock shotgun. The gunboats can honestly be argued as being stronger than the Battalion's backup, and they allow you to be much more mobile and aggressive with your rocket jumps. And the stock shotgun is a very reliable secondary source of damage for when you run out of rockets or want to avoid damaging yourself with your own rocket explosions. But again, they can't really compete with the Battalion's backup in my eyes, so yeah. Pyro quite possibly has the most polarizing secondary weapon lineup in the entire game. One of them is almost completely useless, a few of them are outclassed by superior options, and multiple of them are very powerful options that are good in almost any situation. However, Pyro also has a completely broken unlock that also happens to be one of the most frustrating weapons to play against in any video game ever. The Scorch Shot. The Scorch Shot is a flare gun that can 1. Ignite enemies with an incredibly forgiving splash radius, 2. Stunlock players when the projectile hits them directly, 3. Mini-crit players who are already on fire, and 4. Potentially hit the enemy twice in a single shot, because the flare will bounce off of players and explode a second time when it hits the ground. This is quite possibly the most rewarding weapon in the entire freaking game. It is essentially a mini rocket launcher that can light people on fire. So yeah, the Scorch Shot is completely broken and overpowered. And it's also Pyro's best secondary option. Returning to actually balanced weapons, the runner-ups are the flare gun and the detonator. The flare gun is great for finishing enemies off at a distance, and the detonator acts as a more balanced version of the Scorch Shot, and it also gives you superb mobility, but let's be real, the Scorch Shot's going to get more done than these two ever will. The Sticky Bomb Launcher is the strongest weapon in the entire game. Done. It can set up traps to protect control points, lock down choke points and doorways, and it can also be spammed brainlessly in the general direction of the enemy to completely wipe the entire team. This weapon has it all. The only issue with it is that it's slow to reload and it takes time for your sticky bombs to arm themselves. But this thing is so damn powerful. The ability to store and control damage wherever you want on the map is insane. There honestly isn't much more to say about it. Everyone and their dog knows how powerful the Sticky Bomb Launcher is. The runner-up this time around is the Quickie Bomb Launcher. The Quickie Bomb Launcher behaves much more like a secondary weapon than the stock launcher does, and is really good for close-range burst damage and long-range sticky sniping. But it's kind of just a worse version of the stock launcher in every other situation. When determining Heavy's best secondary weapon, I had two options, the sandwich and the second banana. Both of these weapons are so close in viability that I almost considered calling this a draw. The second banana is great for keeping yourself alive. It only heals you for 200 health, but it recharges much faster than the sandwich, making it very good for constantly keeping your health up. The sandwich, on the other hand, heals you for a full 300 health, and when shared with your teammates, it heals them for 50% of their base health instead of the banana, which only heals 20% of their base health, but it recharges slower as a result. Because we can only pick one, I would say that the sandwich is the better option. Being able to heal your teammates when you don't need to heal yourself is a very valuable utility, and it especially helps in keeping your pocket medic alive between fights. I'd like to give an honorable mention to the family business. There's been a recent increase in shotgun usage on Heavy because of Uncle Dane's recent video, and while I believe that shotguns are valuable because they cover the weaknesses of Heavy's primaries, the food items are typically more viable options. Engineer's most powerful secondary weapon is the Wrangler. This is another obvious one to me. By simply pressing the number 2 on your keyboard, you effectively triple the health of your sentry gun, double its fire rate, but this is all at the cost of being able to aim automatically, and even then, the Wrangler has built-in aim assist, making this downside negligible. Similarly to the Scorch Shot, this is another weapon that is totally broken if used effectively, and is probably one of the most oppressive weapons in the entire game. The Wrangler may very well be the Engineer's best weapon overall. The sheer defensive profile this thing creates is completely unrivaled. The runner-up is the pistol, again. The pistol on Engineer is especially powerful because of the nearly bottomless reserve ammo it grants you. You can fire this thing forever and harass distant enemies to your heart's content. I also want to give a quick mention to the Short Circuit, which is another example of a completely broken unlock that is unfair and unfun to fight against. The amount of coverage this thing has is insane. Soldiers and demo men can't kill you while you have this thing out. Why does Engineer have secondary weapons like this? As stated before, I'm counting Medic's syringe guns as his secondary weapons. They are technically listed as being his primary weapons, but the Medigun is Medic's most important weapon, making it behave more like a primary weapon. With that in mind, the best Medic secondary is the Crusader's crossbow. This thing outclasses the rest of the options by quite a bit. It deals good damage and can put out burst healing that out-heals the Mediguns, not to mention that it reloads passively, meaning that you can quickly swap between your crossbow and Medigun to put in an insane amount of work. There isn't a lot of competition, but the Overdose puts up a good fight. The speed bonus is very helpful for reaching the front lines and getting out of risky situations without wasting Uber. But that said, the crossbow's always going to reign supreme. I think it's funny how a jar of piss is stronger than a literal submachine gun. Seriously, the Girardi may very well be one of the strongest items in the entire game. It's a lot like the Mad Milk, but enemies covered in it take mini crits. Mini crits increase damage by 35% and are unaffected by damage ramp up and fall off. In short, the Girardi can make enemies much easier to kill, because they take more damage while they're covered in it. And it's an unrivaled support option that can help your entire team in nearly every single situation. Again, items that make you stronger and your enemies weaker are insanely powerful. The Girardi is honestly a little bit too powerful. The runner-up this time is the previously mentioned submachine gun. It's a very good weapon. It has good accuracy, fire rate, and can put in enough damage to let you fend for yourself while vulnerable at close range. However, the Girardi is so strong that you are missing out on its supportive capabilities every time you equip it. The Spy's best secondary weapon is the Latranger. Also, don't correct me, I don't care how it's pronounced. I was considering placing the Diamondback as Spy's best secondary, but you often find high-hour Spy mains running the Latranger more often, and for good reason. The passive cloak buff it gives you is really, really good. It lets you cloak much more often, and the damage penalty, while impactful, doesn't really come into play that often because you aren't using this thing for damage. That's what your knife is for. The runner-up is the Diamondback. This is a pretty busted weapon because it gives you free crits for doing what you should already be doing as Spy, and it has a meaningless damage penalty. This thing should honestly have the crit fall off like the Ambassador does. So that concludes the list of the best secondary weapons for each class. Let me know what you think. I always love to see the discussion sparked in the comments, so if you disagree, just let me know. If you agree, let me know. Yeah, see you next time.
Wait a... What just... Wait, what?
What did we just do to him?
He's gonna die. He's gonna die.
Yes! Yes!